Fischbach was one of the first musicians to arrive.
We'd sneak up and we'd walk up into the mountains and hike around up there, and it was really beautiful. That's what I liked, and that's when we discovered the church, and I was horrified because it was being vandalized pretty badly. It was getting graffiti, and the windows were getting smashed out, and there were beer cans, and people were kind of wrecking it. It was like an abandoned building, which was really not cool. Until we met Dr. Lee, because my friend wanted to get married there. And he actually came up, went into the church with us and asked us, "Do you believe in what she said?" And my friend Clark said, "Yes, we do." He said, "Okay, you can get married here." And I said, "This place is getting pretty badly vandalized. Shouldn't we take care of it?" He said, "You want to take care of it? Go ahead, take care of it." That's when we started taking care of the church in Cloverdale.
The first Renaissance fair took place in Southern California in 1963 in the backyard of Phyllis and Ron Patterson. It would eventually move to other venues and grow to include tens of thousands of visitors yearly. Many countercultural norms which people would come to associate with the 60s, including communalism, anti-modernism, craft making, as well as a folk music revival, all played a part in the fair and influenced the people who were intimately associated with it. This then was the domain of many of the artists and musicians who made their homes at Preston. They were the pipers and revelers, the jesters and dancers and craft people who made the fair happen. A scene of world music developed on the mountain. A barrage of talent found its way through the ranch. At certain times you could walk down the road and hear a different genre of world music coming out of every house.
Sometimes, if, say, Thanksgiving or something, we would just have different musicians there. So there'd be Irish music in one little house and maybe English music in another, because the Morris dancers were around. Well, I loved the living room. We had a giant double living room, and Ernie had hung all his butterflies there. And we had grand parties in there with musicians and dancers, all kinds of wonderful people. Paco de Lucia even came there and played one time in our living room. The music and the dance was what made it for me.
The artist colony had no dominating central figure like Madame Preston. There was, however, a leading inspirational figure, Bob Thomas.
I used to stand behind him and watch him make bagpipes, watch him do his illustrations. He did the illustration for the Grateful Dead. He did the Steely Head.
Robert was very interesting gentleman. I call him a true Renaissance man. He could paint, he could draw, he could play bagpipes, he could make bagpipes, he could tune and play almost anything. I remember him very often while Wendy and I cooked breakfast, he would be playing the lute.
He did several of the Grateful Dead's album covers. He did a lot of beautiful paintings. He also, when he moved to London for a while, he went around to all the museums and he discovered that a lot of the bagpipes that they had, they no longer used in England. They'd become obsolete because of the accordion. Nobody played them anymore. He was able to go and they would take them out and let him look at them and measure them. And he started reproducing them, and now they're actually being played again in London.
The original Golden Toad was an outgrowth of the Renaissance Fair band. The fair was only open at certain times, such as several weekends in the summer, so the Golden Toad provided Bob Thomas and his bandmates a chance to continue playing their music outside the confines of the fair. The Golden Toad had no albums, and at their best received performances at Marin Renaissance fairs, most of their listeners would have had no idea who was performing. Thus it would seem that the Golden Toad should have disappeared into the mists of time, and yet that is not the case. The Golden Toad seemed to have been very influential on other musicians, so like all such bands, their legacy after their demise is greater than when they existed. Whatever they might be called, when Dr. Lee, the owner of the ranch, came to know this band of traveling artists, it struck a note with him. They weren't just vagabonds, they were dedicated artisans and musicians. He became a patron and gave them the ranch as their home for as long as he lived. The character of the mountain changed suddenly and radically in 1988 when a huge storm caused a downed power line to start a fire in the middle of the night, destroying many of the historical buildings.
We just finished doing about 5 years of restoration on the mansion, had the roof fixed and ready for the foundation and all the wiring and the plastering, and then it was gone, poof. But nobody lost their lives, and that was amazing, because it was a firestorm. And that was kind of the end of our community. Well, it wasn't kind of the end, it was the end.
We were already here in Ukiah Valley. Just great empathy with everyone. Bob Thomas lost ivory bagpipes that were irreplaceable. He was not there. He and Mary were, I think, at a Renaissance fair when the place burned down. I remember Katana and Ed were in the mansion at that point, and Katana had just had Solomon make her some shoes, and she didn't get out with her shoes. Ed got out with his camera, and that was about it. They got out with their lives. And yeah, very scary, very sad. And yeah, the fire was devastating to us all.
It was very depressing that the buildings all burned down to me, because they were beautiful buildings. However, when I went up there after they'd burned down, it felt actually wonderful. Like, it seemed like while we were living there, there was all kinds of strange interactions, you know, along with the wonderful things that happened, but there was a lot of weird stuff that happened there. But when that burned, it cleared away anything Madam Preston had ever done to the Indians. Who knows what her real relationship was to them, because it was apparently a sacred site for the Pomo Indians where they did their ceremonies, right where she built her mansion. I'm certain they didn't like that. So when it was gone, I walked up there and I stood there and I went, wow, this feels great. Even though the mansion was gone, which was a wonderful thing, it's a shame that it went.